Yeah, good evening. Here is the Kid Story project code. This this part of the project, this code exactly is meant for the interface and some of the functionalities. And this particular code calls a script. It calls all the scripts inside this script folder, which is database. The major thing we handle here is the database and logics. Now, if you let's take a look at the database file. In the database, we call in the OS, that is the operating system, the process, and the SQLite. This one is the library for the SQLite 3. This one, a library for the operating system to interact with the OS, like the functionalities of operating system. And this one, processes. We created a class, like a class, a database class, and inside the database we call a constructor, which is this. The constructor is the name of the database we're interacting with. This can be passed dynamically whenever you create the database. For example, let's go down here. You see where the database is called. Like, look at this, story.db. This one is an SQLite file. It is a file that can be interacted with just a library, not with an RDB or an database engine. All we need is library, SQLite library. Now the constructor says create story metadata table. That is before we create any table, we need to list for each story we create. We have to create the metadata, like what kind of story is it, the kind of ending, the character, and some other features it has. And for the story table, this one consists of the chunks of the table. For example, if we have, let me say, story one. Story one is let's say it has bad ending, and ending. That is for the meta table. As a meta table. Let's assume some of the metadata is this, and this one is prince dot dot dot, and the place is United Kingdom. For the story table, it might consist of let's say one of the one row consists of let me just say from listen, this one is the serial number, which is 1, the story ID, which is 1 as well. Let me just say, is it the start, the beginning? I'll just say start. Then we have the content. Just have another one like that. Number 2, still 1. We have start, the content as well, dot dot dot. You can also have 2 and 3, 1, middle, the content. So it continues this way. So you can also have 2 dot 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 as described above. Now that's explained already. Let me comment this out, though it's not part of the project. Now look at this. It says create these 2 tables. And before these 2, let's check the 2 tables. Control D. Whoa. Create table. Oh yeah, this is it. It says create table. Now the meta table say this now says check if this table is um already exists. Now we will be checking that is under function is table. Control F. Define is table. Yeah, here is it. This one checks if the table already exists. Though we can also use other criteria to check if it already exists, like something like create if not exists. So there are many ways to kill a rat. Just choose one that suits you better. So this one checks if the table already exists. If it exists, it returns false. If not, then it returns false. Then we have the create table query, like all this dot dot dot. You already understand this. And this one, if you are viewing it from the terminal, or if you have ability to check the terminal, it will tell you that the table is already created. And database as well. If the database does not exist, it also creates the database. VA and the other one as well, create story. The same thing applies. Now we have other functions here, like select story ID. The select story ID, which is this, it accepts the self, which is calling the class itself, like parameters passed to the, like a public or private parameters, like in the class. This one is the emotion, like maybe bad, good, sad, happy, the character and the place. So it takes all the other arguments and checks if there's anyone that suits this, if it can find any. And we are not just checking that. What we do here is that in order to make it random, we apply this order by random. That is, once you get all the stories that meets this criteria, maybe all the criteria you passed here, then you randomize all the results, then you select the very first one. You randomize, then you select the first one. So this story ID is then passed to this select story. Now where is that? Oh yeah, this one checks if a DB connection is valid, or if another process is holding on to the database. Though this one is advisable to have, in order not to have a crashing app. If you have this in your app, it will at least just help you to catch some errors that you don't want, that you actually want to see if the query is going to execute or not. Not that you'll be waiting for try and catch to get those errors. Now let's go back. Let me delete all the comments here. Go back to the story and to the interface. Here we're calling the system the PyQt5, which is the GUI framework. The Qt code, the GUI, the widgets, like the buttons, the panels, the grids, etc. All called from this part. And the dialog box, the message, you know what this one means, like the file dialog box. You want to save something, you want to call something, and this one, though handling anything. Here we have the message box, which is important for this project. Here we're calling the scripts, the database scripts, like append to this file, go call the OS module, the path, then get whatever you find inside the script folder, which is this database. Most of the time this one, it has nothing to do with this. Now down this one is the U and the GUI class. There are lots of things going down here. We have the object name, like what are we actually calling, which is the form. Yes. This one is the default size of the form. Like when it is not maximized, then we are calling on to this. The background of the form is this. You can check this out on Google or any editor to know the actual color. It's not white actually. Let me check if we find something online to describe this color. So check X color. Control V. Yeah. Here's the color. This one. That's the background. If you check the application, you find out that part of the frame that looks like this, it is the main background color. So we have the vertical layout. The vertical layout is just to make sure that everything shrinks accordingly. Like you have responsive layout. If the screen is small, then you have a smaller widget. If the font is bigger or is maximized, then you have larger widgets. So it's just to make sure that the widgets do not just shrink or fold out of the layout. And also look at this. This a group box used to group items. You can have 5 items inside a group. So let's go down to check some other things. Though this one is not really important. If you want to go through this one, it means you want to go through each and every element one after the other, and it takes a lot of time. So we have the fonts the font style we're using, which is this.
Yeah, but this one is the closest one. I needed it again.
Let me check if there is any other better we can explain. No. We are calling, if you look at this is the label. Let's go down. You find out that the label, the corresponding label, like this one, we set the value, the text of the label down for translation purpose. Here it says translate form. That is for later, though this one is not really important, because we are not translating anything, but for better production we have it down. You can also use set text up by just removing this like this. If you remove this and this one, it will still give you the same thing, but just to make sure that you follow production rule, and you have the translation function method. If you look at all this, the same thing applies to them. You can just go through the code. If you want to check the text on those items, just come down, like we translate UI. Okay. That being said, I told you the function of layout. what layout means. You have the vertical layout, you have the horizontal layout. The function of the vertical layout is that you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You want to stack items on top of one another and make sure that they resize vertically. Like if you resize your windows like this, they respond to the size to the size of the window. And for the other one, horizontal, it means for this layout, it means that if you resize your window this way, look at this inner region of this part, like this text, this place you type. If you resize this part, you see that this part resize without causing any problem to this application. That is what horizontal does. For example, if you look at your application, you see that there is a large area on the screen where the story actually appears. That is just like this area, and horizontal layout also works on it. And if you look at the side, you have this part, which is side menu, which is static. The size does not change like this one changes. That one is already fixed. It's only this one that changes, which is affected by horizontal layout. Okay, then we continue to add those elements. Where do we add a particular item? For example, this combo, this drop down, a combo. We call it combo. Let me check if there is something similar to that. Yeah, something like this. If you click on this, it will drop down the list, then you select, then it goes back. So let's go back. After doing that, you add it to the group box. This one is the x-axis and the y-axis. Where do you want to put it? Yes, the x-axis and the y-axis. And look at this. What is the length and what is the height? So I hope you understand this. So if you see any 4 parameters like something like this one, it means this one is the x-axis, the y-axis. This one means the length, and this one is the height of the object. If you look at this one, the same thing applies to this. Okay.
That's how people give mercy. Yes, they went in one balloon here.
Is there any other one I have to explain to you?
That's to the.
Yeah. If you look at this.
France body that is giving their award. I mean, it did not deserve their award.
You have the object's name here. If you call an object, then you also need to give it a name that the program itself will call. So like the reference name, which is this. Now, as we have all that created, let's go to this particular item, which is click button. We have a click button and we also have click events. A button is clickable and for each item on the program, we always have events to it. For example, you have hover events. If a mouse is over something, then it's called hover. For example, I place my mouse on this connect, it shows reference and the place where it's being called from, which means it is an hover event. If I click on something like if I click on this particular item, this one here, file, it means click events. Then if I click on this button, the generate story button, let's check what
when
is
I knew it was going to be, then I saw him attend
on the story button. Yeah, generate stories. If you click on that button, it calls this function, and this self means that the function is inside the class, the foundation class, the UI class, which is this. So it should look for that class inside the UI. I can look for this particular class inside the this class. Then let's look for where it is. Yeah, here is it. And this one says generate is a function define a function called generate story btn click, and call the parameter the database, sorry, the class parameters. Yeah, the very first thing we do here is to instantiate the database and class. This database, we are instantiating it with the name of the database file. The name of the database file is found inside the script. That is, whenever you run it, you always find the story.db inside the root directory of the file of the application. Yeah, this one says if the country combo, like the country drop down, is empty, or the character drop down is empty, or the story and that is emotion drop down is also empty, call the message box and pop out this. You can read more on this, what this one does, like the title of the message box. So, and then once you pop out the message, this one means execute, that is show the message box after setting all these values. Then once it is executed, then you stop execution of this inside this particular method. But if any of this is false, then you don't need to execute any of this. Come down here, then from db class, which is this, call the method story select story id, passing all the necessary parameters which I've said earlier, the emotion, character name, place, dot. So you already know that. You can check that on your own. You also have the story ID. If the story ID, it couldn't find any story ID with all these parameters, then it should pop out. It should give you this error, like there's no story for your selection. So though this one displays set text inside where the story is supposed to be displayed, then just give us this message inside. There's no story for your selection, blah blah blah. Then it returns. Let's assume there is a story ID found, that is, it returned 1. Do not forget, we randomize the selection in DB. Then after we randomize the query selection, then we select the first one, the one at the top. Do not forget we are only returning just one. Then after that, look at this. Well, if this one is not empty, then it comes here again. This one says story class. From this story class on top, call select story, that is use the story ID to select the stories, like the start, the middle and the end. Once it gets multiple, like 1 2 3, it gets more than one items here, like 1 2 3 4. Then you don't check through. Let me check here again. Pardon me for this. Okay, then it checks. It says for each row in story data, like each row in the story data, if the second item, like one of those stuffs returned, like you know, it's just like associative array. The item number two inside that row is actually um, the part of the story. Is it the middle, the second? Is it the middle, the start, or the end? But this one is it starts with 0, 1, 2. This associative array. The array um is identified with numbers, and the numbers start with 0, 1, 2 to the last element position. Then it checks if that particular that the current row selected is and the third item is starts. Then it saves the content into this variable, and all that once all this are done, then it concatenates all the story, and you have the full story to read. I hope this explains well. This one is just the major function for the application. Like you call the system, you initialize the application, like the what's it called? The Qt application. Then you call the class dot dot dot. You maximize, then you actually show it, then you execute. To show and execute are two different things. Look at this. It says execute. After it shows, not really popping out to the user screen. This one now sends to the user screen, and once the user quits the app, then it sends the results to this one, which means system.exit, and the application closed finally. Bye bye.